I'm Claire Edwards, and you're listening to Authentic Leadership, a series of conversations, insights and inspirations with leaders who are real, raw and authentic. Today I bring you a conversation on 21st century leadership with Silvia Damiano, the founder of the About My Brain Institute. Silvia shares how she came to land in Australia from Argentina and takes us on her leadership journey and her passion for turning leadership back up the right way. As she says, leadership is upside down. You'll also hear about how the I4 Neuro Leader model was born, and that's leadership self-assessment and 360-degree assessment, and also her vision for leadership in the future. Enjoy your time with Silvia. I first came across Silvia Damiano at the end of 2014, where I stumbled across a TEDx talk that she'd just given. And I remember I found myself shouting enthusiastically at the screen. So I contacted Silvia. Actually, I probably stalked her. And shortly before I left to go back to the UK, I met up with her in Sydney and became accredited in her 360-degree leadership assessment tool, which we'll be chatting about later. Silvia founded the About My Brain Institute in 2009 with the purpose and passion, I have to say, of democratising leadership and neuroscience. And she believes so strongly that leaders in our 21st century global economy and their organisations must radically change long-held ideas of what constitutes effective leadership. And this is going to be the topic of our podcast today. That leadership is upside down, which is also the title of Silvia's groundbreaking leadership book. In 2018, Silvia continued that passion in the form of a multi-award-winning documentary, Make Me a Leader. I'm so excited to say, Silvia, welcome to Authentic Leadership.
Hello, Claire. How are you? It's such a privilege to be here with you today.
I'm thrilled as well. It's been a long time coming, and I'm just really curious as to what direction our conversation will take today. But Silvia, before we sort of delve into the topic, I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious, as to how you landed in the land of Oz all the way from Argentina. What was it that influenced your choice of country?
Well, that's a very good question because I have a very good answer for that. And simply, the main reason was economic reasons. We had endured 3,000% of inflation a year in 1989. And that prompted me to look for new horizons. It's quite scary to go through hyperinflation when money is never enough, and you have to be very resourceful and creative to continue your life. And I had my first child then, and I thought, I didn't envision any changes for the future. And even though the hyperinflation dissipated after a couple of years, the circumstances were not the best. So I looked for a new place to move to.
Wow, that must have been a bit of a heart struggle as well, you know, when you love your country and you see your country suffering and struggling. But then there's that wonderful opportunity of new beginnings.
That's right. And, it's not just your country, but your family, your close family, your friends, everything you knew has to go to the back burner and really look for what may happen next and be open towards new opportunities and the future. And it is a very significant change in anyone's life to migrate, as you probably know yourself. And to befriend new people, to get acquainted with a new way of working or a new way of being. I inserted myself quite quickly in the Australian culture and society. However, there are things that can never be replaced. like the proximity of your family, and even the jokes. Today, one of the things I miss the most are the jokes, because the language, the humor changes from country to country, and there's no common denominator to create that closeness with people you meet new.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I miss British humor as
That's
well.
right.
At least I can get that on TV. So you're making this, this mammoth transition to Australia. Were you able to work-wise take a similar type of role? Were you able to move into an industry that you wanted to? How did work go for you?
Well, very close to me getting the visa to migrate as an independent migrant, I met a colleague from the university I was teaching, and he introduced me to a person who he said, I think that this person has some interest in Australia as well as in Argentina, in the south of Argentina I was living at that moment. And I found the phone number of this person, started calling him in times where we didn't have mobiles, or when I had to go and borrow the phone from a neighbor. Finally, after 25 different attempts, I got to talk to this person that resulted to be a German baron, someone that had a castle in Bavaria. And
Oh my goodness.
yes, he was selling his castle from his family. He inherited the castle, and he was investing in Argentina and in Australia at the same time. So his family was living in Melbourne, in Toorak. And I was a biologist. I was specialized in something that he was interested at the time. And he asked me to do a piece of work for him. And 6 months later, when I finished that piece of work, he asked me if I wanted to come to Hobart and set up his operations in Tasmania. And I accepted the offer. And so when my visa was approved, I came to Hobart, and I worked for him for 3 years.
Wow.
Yes, that was
And,
the
and, and
destiny.
from what I remember, weren't you were leading a team of people, weren't you?
Yes. I had suddenly, I was very young. I was in my late 20s, and I had to put together a team of 50 people who included migrants from Europe and from other places to set up the operations. And we had a big nursery, and the baron stepped into property development. And yes, I had to buy him land. I had to liaise with different project managers and landscapes and architects to build what today is a resort style 200 kilometers north of Hobart. And so it was a very unique opportunity. It was meant to be definitely somehow in my life, and I took advantage of that opportunity. So I came to Australia with a job, which is, it was a big jump, but at least my family was happier that I got a job when I came here.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
So, can you tell me a little bit about those early leadership experiences? You're in a completely different country, completely different culture, different language, managing a large team of people, and I assume you had some sort of management or leadership experience in Argentina. But what were some of the key moments for you, either the challenges or the opportunities? I'm really interested to hear.
That's also a very good question, Claire, because I had no management experience when I took that job. I was teaching. I've always been a teacher of different things, and no management experience. So I was very brave, I would say. That was
You,
my
you have a large set of cojones.
yes, that's right. I didn't. It was very natural. I didn't think about management experience, and I'm thinking about the people who today are given a management role coming from a technical background,
Yeah.
and they struggle to embrace a management role because it can be quite scary. But I didn't have the opportunity to think about it. That was what I had to do, and I did it. He asked me to look for people. I restarted recruitment. There wasn't any psychometric tools. There wasn't anything. That only were my interviews and my questions. And imagine, I never had run a team before or a business before. So I don't know how I did it, to be honest, but I managed to do it. And we set up, probably one of the most challenging things that I had to do was we engaged a team of builders that had to build a shade house for plants at the beginning, quite a massive shade house. And when I go to inspect the construction, the first thing I see is the timber bending at the back of the wall. And I didn't know much, but I said, well, this doesn't look very good. And I said, well, there are two options. We pay you 50% and the other 50% is to be paid. So you either fix it or, you have to leave and accept that you've lost 50% of the contract. And to be able to say that, imagine in my 20s, that was a very scary thing. And I talked to my husband at the time, and he said, well, if you want to leave this company, you have to do it. And I said, okay, I'll just have the chat. And I had the chat. And then the guy said, look, I want to talk to my partner. He left the room, talked to his partner. He came back and he said, well, I'm not going to finish this. We are going to leave now. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, you have no pride in regards to your work. You build something, you take an engagement contract, and you just leave without finishing the job. And that to me was incomprehensible. And so I had to engage a new team of people to finish the job, and I paid them accordingly. So I had to make these decisions that at the time, they were quite important decisions without any experience. So from that moment onwards, I thought that, learning about management or leadership was very important, not because I understood the theoretical frameworks or the philosophies of leadership, but I thought, well, if you can't have a tough conversation with someone that reports to you, you're in trouble. And yes, and you need the cojones or the guts to be able to do it.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of a conversation I had a couple of podcasts ago about someone who was talking about leading with grit and grace. And that's obviously the grit part, that, you can't just have one, you need to have a balance. And so that sort of is bringing me to, with your own leadership experiences, what was it that was happening inside your head that brought you to be so passionate about making such a bold leadership statement as leadership is upside down?
Well, after I left Tasmania, I went back to South America and I worked for one of the biggest telecommunication companies in Argentina at the time where the state from Italy and the France telecom were integrating and had purchased the Argentinian telecommunication company. So I was lucky enough to work for a French boss who was a very experienced manager that had worked for IBM. And he saw me presenting one day, and he saw my passion for teaching, my understanding of management and leadership at the time. And he said, look, you have to really train yourself and help me with this cultural change integration. So I was able to start attending conferences and workshops, and I did some studies on leadership, but also I was able to practice on the job, conducting focus groups and interviews and workshops and sessions and coaching to try to make this cultural change stick. It was a very difficult integration because imagine combining French and Italian and Argentinian in one in one pot.
Oh my goodness!
It was a very, very good experience for me. And since that was the beginning of my consulting career, actually not when I came to Australia, but when I went back to Argentina, which I wasn't planning to do, but it just happened. I went back as my second child was born. And that took me on the path of wanting to learn more about leadership. I worked for professional firms. I had my own business. And after 6 years, I came back to Australia and got a job for Westpac. And I always said that Westpac is like the Rolls Royce of training and learning and development, because at the time I joined them, learning and development and leadership was such an important aspect of any manager's role. So the focus of the bank in having great leaders and having great followers as well, which is a very important thing for leaders, to train people to know how to follow the leader, became a passion of mine. So I work for them. I also work for business schools, and teaching all this stuff, until one day, with the advancement of or with the change in how we see leadership from a psychological approach to a more brain-based approach, combining my scientific background and my expertise in leadership, it took me to come up with a new model of leadership that integrates the brain in the competencies that we need to train our leaders for the future. And that's what happened, really.
And so, with the Westpac approach a more sort of traditional leadership development? Because I know you say you're passionate about democratizing leadership. So, was there something that spurred you to think, everybody can be a leader, or everybody needs to be a leader? Where does the democratizing come in?
Yes, no, it wasn't so much from the Westpac Times. This is a more recent thought that I had probably 10 years ago, where entrepreneurship has become more embraced than any other time in my life, at least. I don't know how it was before, but when you talk to millennials and people who are in their 30s or earlier, younger, they can see that many of the successes that are achieved by younger people are by people nurturing an idea and making it happen. And when you are in the process of making an idea happen, you do need to have leadership skills, whether you call leadership skills the ability to influence venture capitalists or the bank to lend you money, or your customers or people in your team. We all need to be able to have a vision and the capacity to communicate and influence the people that will help you to make your idea succeed.
Yeah.
So it's I would say that it's probably more emphasized as organizations started to get rid of people. I have seen many retrenchments happening in the banking industry, where people wonder, where do I go next? What do I do next? And when you have never had your own business, it's a scary proposition. And it requires, abilities that you didn't even know you had. But I believe that all of us have the capacity to be leaders of our own life, of, our own business, or even, if we work for a big organization, how to lead that organization and a team. And we need to awaken these neural circuits in our brain to realize that we can do it.
That brings me on nicely to the whole the essence of brain-based leadership, and what was it that sort of awakened inside you that made you realize about the criticality of brain health and understanding and awareness of our brains to be effective leaders?
Well, it's quite interesting that we have kept the brain locked in a black box for years and years and years, and we never thought about it, or we never talk about it, even though Ramon y Cajal is this Spanish doctor that in 1896 spoke about neuroplasticity and the neurons connecting to each other in a congress in Rome. And people basically ignore him, like nobody follow up on his work. We didn't think about the brain and its impact on leadership behaviors as much as we are thinking today. And this evolution has only, I don't know, 10 to 12 years old. The first Neuro Leadership Conference happened in 2007. And when I discovered that, I embraced the concept very, very quickly, probably because of my biology background and very tuned into the science and being able to read every research paper that crossed my computer, my laptop, and be able to understand it and link it back to what I was doing. So I became in love with all of this simply because it explains some of the things that we don't understand when we see leaders being toxic to others or being positive and happy, and analyzing the fine qualities of leadership that everybody aspires to have or aspires to see in their leader. So it made a lot of sense straight away.
And in terms of when you engage with leaders, when you're communicating, when you're influencing with them, what sort of reactions do you get from them? Because it must be, for many of them, it's a new concept, it's a new idea, which, as you say, is absolutely crazy. I mean, we look after our physical health. You can have a heart transplant, you can't have a brain transplant. So what sort of reactions do you get from people? Is there like the aha moments, awakenings? I'm not sure about this.
No, one of the things that has surprised me the most has been how welcoming people have been when you present on the neuroscience of leadership. People, the only ones that receive leadership training are people in organizations that embrace this learning. Most people outside organizations, they never get to access any leadership training. Now it's becoming more popular, and people are talking about personal leadership or self-leadership, and there are retreats to awaken your leadership. But really, this is a very recent thing. Most of the leadership training was always directed to people in leadership positions, senior leaders or middle managers or executives, and it didn't go beyond that. So it is limited by budgets, but outside that, it's limited by people not understanding what leadership actually means. And to be honest, 2020, besides giving us significant surprises and new experiences, even how comfortable we feel in our home, in our household, it has taught us a lot about the power of leadership. Who leads well, who doesn't lead well, what leadership actually means, how it impacts or how it can impact millions of people around the world. And one of the things that we must accept as a fact is that politicians get chosen by majorities, but they don't get chosen because they are the best leaders they could be for societies. And I hope that some of the work we have done at the Institute can shed some light into this space, because we need to be better followers of leaders. We need to have better leaders governing and making decisions for all of us.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Which actually leads us nicely into the whole concept of leadership is upside down. I'm really curious what you mean by that, and what leadership qualities you saw as missing that we need to be able to thrive, especially today.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we have noticed throughout the years is that leaders at the top have less and less time available to guide people's choices when it comes to their career development. So I would say that the seed to my thought started by observing in the bank or in other organizations I was part of how little time people offer to their co-workers or their team members. But when you talk to the team members, they are desperate to have the attention and the ear of the people at the top. But that's not happening. It doesn't matter how desperate we are. The reality is many people get their one-on-ones canceled, or the quality of the one-on-ones is not what they expect. So when you have this scenario, the only option you have is to do things yourself. You can't wait for anyone to guide your career. You actually have to push and decide by yourself, with perhaps the help of a coach or a mentor that you may find that are willing to help you. But the reality is we need to take ownership for our careers, but also for the way we interact with others, for the way we make decisions, for the health of our brain, which is at the core of everything we do.
Yeah.
So basically, we can't expect others to to guide our lives. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I hear you. And so with the whole leadership is upside down concept, what I absolutely loved about the TEDx talk that you gave was really bringing to life those leadership qualities that formerly have been perceived as soft or nice to have. And again, through You Make Me a Leader documentary as well, really bringing to life those personal qualities of leadership that bring the tribe together, that are inclusive. Can you talk a little bit more to that, Silvia? Because it's such an important part of what you do.
It is an important part. And if you think about the evolution of leadership as such, from the industrial age, where the managers used to say to their employees what they wanted, and there wasn't much feedback coming back to the manager.
Yeah.
We transitioned to the knowledge or the information age, where we went to universities, we acquired knowledge, and we thought that knowledge was the source of power. Today, because knowledge is everywhere you go, you can Google anything or ask your 3-year-old to Google anything and they will find it for you. We need to transition in the way we think about where is the human capital, what is the human capital providing our team or our business. And that is the ideas that people have and the thinking of the people. And one of the things that managers or leaders sometimes miss is the power of the ideas of the people at the bottom of the organization. If you ask a teller of a bank what they think they need to do to improve customer service, they will tell you. You have to be prepared to listen. But they will tell you how to improve their little patch of power, if you want to call it like that. And if they have ideas, those ideas should be asked for and should be filtered and should be nurtured and should be, implemented if it's worth it, if the idea is worth it. So it's not the same to lead a team of people that know how to do things than to lead a team of people who have ideas. For some managers, to have to listen to the ideas and to nurture and to help the implementation can be a very scary thing, because you have to let your ego go. You have to improve your listening abilities. You have to be generous in a spirit to promote someone that is below you without feeling fearful that the person may take your position in the future. So there is a combination of abilities and skills that need to be in place to work with younger people or with people with ideas in the current times. The alternative, Claire, is okay. We don't ask for any ideas. We continue to do the things the same way we did it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and in 20 years we don't exist anymore as a company because we stagnate. Yes,
or we pay external consultants a fortune to tell us what the teller already knew.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I heard from a client that very recently that the government, and I won't say which state government said that, but they said we have to minimize the consultants' spend, and we need our people to come up with ideas. And that's not always that easy, because consultants sometimes specialize in depth on a particular topic, and there wouldn't be enough hours in the day for a line manager to acquire that knowledge. But at least the line manager needs to be able to assess if the consultants are providing value or not. It's not a matter of eliminating consultants. It's a matter of assessing the value.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so from that foundation, from that basis, I'd love you to share the story. I know I already know it, but the story of being in the plane and coming up with your I4 model.
Okay, so because I was so focused on absorbing anything I could learn about neuroscience and think about how I could take this knowledge to my clients, because clients are very busy. They already have a lot on their plates. They don't want to delve into the science or the details of the science. But I thought there has to be some items or some concepts that are useful to them to improve their day to day. So I was reading a lot, and I went to do a conference in Perth. And on the way back, I'm sitting in the plane with 3 books open and taking notes and thinking about things. And as I go above Alice Springs, approximately, or around that area, I had this incredible insight dropping into my head, literally, about how the I4 model could be. And I thought about what is it that the organizations want in their people. And organizations want 4 things very clearly. They may want more, but basically they want people to collaborate, to perform, to be innovative, and to be agile. And at the time when I thought about this new methodology of agile wasn't even in the market, really. But the people were starting to talk about the word agility. So the word agility came into my mind. And then I thought about, okay, so it's not enough to ask people to develop or to show these competencies. You need to be able to give them the tools to achieve these organizational competencies. And that's when I thought about, okay, what are the critical abilities that we can develop within ourselves to achieve them? And what came to my mind was integration of the mind, the brain, and the body to achieve or to perform better. Inspiration, inspire ourselves and inspire other people to want to collaborate with us. Imagination, which is the precursor of creative thinking that leads to innovation. And finally, the less trusted ability of intuition that leads to be agile. If you want leaders to move fast with the times, they have to rely on big data or analysis, but not just that. They need to be able to know when to use it. And that has to do with our ability to intuit, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's funny. I'm going to be launching a podcast next week around intuition and the power of intuition.
That's right. And as you know, Claire, when you start to explore what came up years later after I started with the model was all this information about the gut being the second brain, and the microbiome, and how important is the health of our microbiome in terms of protecting ourselves from mental ailments, and also improving our decision making. So it has been a fascinating journey to create this model and to create the assessment and the certification processes, because it's all new stuff, all biology and science, and people love the science. People love to understand the why. They need to change something. Otherwise, people don't want to change.
I think that's absolutely the biggest thing, and the biggest thing for me is that finally we're able to give people a why. We're able to help them normalize what's happening to them and the reactions to them, and then to offer them choices to, be the best that they absolutely can be in looking after their gut and their brain and their heart and everything else holistically. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, Silvia, from when you started this journey to now, it's probably 13 years. How is it evolving? Is it taking on as you had hoped? Are there challenges? I'm sure you'll have, if you can share a fabulous success story, but I'm just curious as to the evolution in comparison to what you expected or hoped.
Yeah. Well, when I started this journey, I probably did it more for the passion for the topic rather than expecting to create an institute out of this. But I thought there's so much to be shared, so much knowledge. And if we don't share this new knowledge, we are going to stagnate when it comes to leadership effectiveness. And the journey hasn't been easy. We had to do a lot of investment in time, in resources, in effort, and I'm so proud of the achievements of my team that has believed in my vision, and it's a never-ending journey because there's always new research that comes up that we update our materials. We have incredible feedback and accolades when it comes to the attractiveness of the resources we have designed and we make available to our practitioners. So it's been fascinating to build all of this. If you would have asked me, it will take so much time and effort, and I would have said, well, no way I'm doing this. But we never know what's ahead of us, so you just have to dive into the pool and swim. And I don't regret it.
Yeah, I was going to say you must be so proud, because one thing that I see with the whole, and I love everything about I4 and the programs that you deliver, but you walk your talk. You talk about innovation, you talk about creativity, you talk about creating materials that are brain friendly, that are inspiring. So you're totally congruent.
Yes, that's. Many people have said you are the model. That's why it comes so easy to you. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm the model, but I certainly believe that working without inspiration, without imagination, without intuition, and without proper integration, it's not going to be as effective as it could be. And I had to work on my balance. I had to work on integrating my mind and my brain as well. So we are a work in progress. It may sound that I got it all, and it's not like that. We all have areas in our lives that even if you are working at the top of your game, it doesn't mean you are an Olympic champion. And I always make this distinction. Sometimes we feel we are very good in what we do, but it doesn't mean that you won't find something to continue working on, or to calm your brain more, or to be more compassionate towards others, or more attentive towards others, or to yourself. So it's really good, because as you age, you realize that there's always work to be done. And to be the best version of yourself. It's very interesting.
We're wonderful works in progress.
That's right. That's correct.
So that brings me on to the Make Me a Leader documentary, and I was lucky enough to be at the premiere and just to see the reactions of people and what you created with that. Now, I see you're going, to all four corners of the earth. That's for the flat earth people. You've got access to these amazing people, and you're bringing it all together. How was that born?
Well, that was born because one day I was at the airport in Madrid, coming back from a piece of work I had done there, and out of the blue, I received this email of someone that I had never met or heard of, and that was Dr. Harald Harun from Norway, a researcher and a management professor for one of the universities in Oslo. And he says to me, I've bumped into some of the things you write online, and I know you will benefit from our recent research on world-class leaders. I just couldn't believe it, because at that moment I was writing the Leadership is Upside Down book, and I was able to integrate these findings into the book. And you wonder how these things happen, because I didn't bump into this research paper before, and he found me, I don't know how, and I was able to benefit from his knowledge. So a couple of years after that, when I had all this certification going, I thought there is so much information and so many people I have met in this journey in my original research to do the assessment, that I think I haven't done enough. I think I have to do a bit more. And I said to my videographer, I said, look, I'm going to write an email to Dr. Harun, and if he says yes to being interviewed by us, I'm going to buy the equipment to produce a documentary. Would you be willing to travel with me around the world and produce this and help me produce this? And he said, yes, definitely. And so I wrote to Dr. Haroon, and he said, yes, I'm in. And so we bought the tickets to Europe, but also I made sure that I had a few other people that I thought, would be worthwhile to interview.
Yeah.
And so we did 10 countries and 10 different interviews in 8 days or something like that. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. We didn't have enough. Our budget was very limited. We just had the passion and the energy to do this. And that's how it all started. It's almost like you set the vision, and suddenly things start to happen that
Yeah.
either support you or hinder you from achieving what you want, what you set up to do. And that's how we started.
Yeah, is serendipity coincidental
It
or
is.
not?
It
Probably.
is.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And I mean, in terms of the awards and the accolades, was that something that you actively went for? Was it something that you were expecting? Was it a joyful surprise? Because it just went nuts.
It did. It did. To be honest, I didn't expect any of that. We didn't even think about it. We just, once we had the film, we applied to different film festivals, which is what you do. And that I didn't know that either. But my team said, "Oh, you know what? We should put the film in a festival." I said, "Okay." And then they discovered this whole world of festivals around the world. So we put many applications, and we were selected for 8 different awards, including Best Director, which I achieved in one of the Hollywood film festivals, and Best Film. And that was very humbling. Like, I am not a film director. Now I am, but I wasn't a film director before. And to be chosen as a best director it's not an easy thing to do. But at the time of developing or editing the documentary, the only thing that I had in my mind is to be able to finish this edition by July 2018, and to be able to do a premiere, to invite people. Of course, when you do these events, you don't know who's going to turn up, but we ended up with 300 people in Sydney for the premiere, clients, friends, family. And my family is not very big here, so it was mainly clients and people that heard about the movie and came to support the launch. And that was very emotional. I would say that it was one of the most emotional nights of my life, because it was incredible to see the final product on the screen.
And the atmosphere and the
It was
energy in the
amazing.
room.
Yeah, it was
It was just
amazing.
like this one amazingly proud tribe. It was wonderful.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it for people, because I'm going to be promoting this as I sometimes do on
Thank you.
LinkedIn,
Thank you.
promoting the film. But you're saying that you were working to a deadline. You had slightly more than a little hiccup when you were making the film.
I did. After the first trip to Europe, when I came back, I fell down the stairs and I broke both of my ankles at the same time. And I ended up in hospital, and I had to stay there for 2 months. I had a surgery. And then I had to learn to walk again. So it took me a year to go back to walking properly again, because if it's one foot, it's okay, but it's not okay, but it's probably easier than to recover the walking ability with both feet being hurt. So you lose the sense of balance, and you're not sure of how you're going. So that pushed the deadline probably several months away. But once we managed to get all the filming done, then it became a race to edit all this material, to put the storyline together, and to finish it in 6 months. So I got up every morning at 5 o'clock. I would watch every minute of the movie, pick up the things that were not right, try to change lines so it would all fit together, and then choose the imagery on top, and that in addition, I had to do my consulting work, so I was very busy, let's say, for 6 months.
hope you got a holiday after that.
Yeah, I don't know. I continue working at the end of the year. I think I went on holidays, some holidays at the end of the year. But I have a lot of energy, and when you have passion for what you do, and you have a determination to achieve something, it's like work doesn't become work. Work becomes it's pleasure. It's part of what you do.
I absolutely hear you.
Mhm.
And you've so generously made the film available for free. Tell us what influenced that decision.
Well, maybe it's desperation. Desperation to see better leadership around the world. And at the beginning of the pandemics, as we saw many consultants doing webinars and offering free content, I thought, well, instead of offering another webinar on how to navigate COVID times, I thought, well, we have the film. So many more people need to see this film, and I got this by many of the viewers, that we decided just to put it online and make it available to everybody. And so it's mainly word of mouth, and many organizations I know, they use it for their employees. Just recently I got a request, can we put this content and offer it to our staff? And definitely it's in YouTube, anyone can watch it. So there it is. I think it's something to be shared rather than to keep
Yeah.
locked in a cupboard. That wasn't the
I,
original idea.
I couldn't agree more. I remember as a manager working for an IT research company, I used to try and find really good films. And then I remember the first film was called Touching the Void.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar. It was about two mountain climbers, and one had to make a decision about cutting the rope on his partner. So what we
Yes,
did,
excellent
we
movie.
just decided to we stayed on after work and we watched the film together, and then we just had this open discussion around decision making, and it was fabulous. And I think something like Make Me a Leader, even if you're doing it virtually, that to be able to watch it together and have that collective discussion around the evolution of leadership in your business.
Yes.
And some of the things that some people might find slightly left field that are now becoming more integrated. So bringing, and I love this, bringing compassion, bringing kindness, bringing courageous vulnerability into a workplace culture. I think, we can accelerate the evolution.
That's right. Yes. And, I think that the world sometimes evolves very slowly, but sometimes we have these leaps of evolution where suddenly there is an increase in the consciousness, in the group consciousness around the world. And I think the pandemic has done that. People that never imagined they would be doing a leadership program online, suddenly they are being part of one, and they realize it can be done. They can have coaching online and they can benefit from this coaching, for example, or from this training. And it is possible. So the pandemic has broken down many barriers in people's minds that they were necessary for us to continue evolving.
Yeah. And Sylvia, I mean, looking out to the future, looking to this work that you were dedicated to around brain-based leadership. What are your hopes for the future and the future of leadership?
I think that even though this is a topic that I talk about all the time, when I speak with friends of my children, or with new managers or a new group, or people don't know this stuff. I just can't believe it. You become so familiar with it that you think everybody knows it, but the reality is they don't. So they may have heard about the brain and the mind, but they don't really know what it means, because people are busy with their own stuff. So they actually have to devote some time to explore this in more depth and learn it. And we are all parents, we are all citizens, we are all sisters, brothers, daughters and sons, or employers or employees. And I think that we all have the moral duty to improve ourselves in order to improve our work environments, our homes, and our societies. We can't just continue navigating the world, damaging the environment, becoming toxic bosses, and say that this is the way we are and there's no solution for us. That's not true. Neuroplasticity means that we can generate new connections in the brain and new cells, even if we are 90 years of age. So we have the moral duty to evolve, to be better every day. We see lots of cases of corruption, of people who are doing the wrong thing, and it doesn't matter if they get caught later or not. Of course, it's better they get caught, but what about the damage that they have caused along the way? So as a mother, I always say to my kids, you have to do the best you can. And to do the best you can, you need to train yourself. You need to learn about your own brain. You need to become aware of what you do and the impact you have on other people. And that's something that we can all do.
I was going to ask one more question, but I think you've just rounded it off perfectly.
Excellent.
What a pleasure. I can't believe how quickly the time's gone.
Yeah, it's gone very quickly.
So what I'll do is I'll put some links to the institute, to your work, to the film, up on the show notes. Is it okay if I put your LinkedIn details?
Definitely, so people can... Absolutely. Thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it.
I have been a stalker of yours for the past 6 years. I so love what you do. And I was lucky enough to spend all that time with you in the UK when you were doing your certification.
Yes.
And I keep learning from you, and I keep loving that learning. So Silvia, don't stop what you're doing.
Thank you.
Use the stairs carefully.
No, I want to stop, and sometimes you feel like stopping, but then something else comes up, or someone contacts you, and we are now about to release a new book called Brain Friendly Leadership: The 9 Habits of a Future Fit Mind. That I have co-written with Juan Carlos Cubeiro, one of the biggest managers of management gurus of Spain. So it's coming up in October in Spanish, and after that, we'll probably have it in English shortly after.
Wonderful. I hope that I'll be able to be physically at the book launch.
Well, if not, it will be a virtual launch, like with everything else.
Silvia, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go well.
Bye.